Hello and welcome back. You're listening to A Hero's Welcome, episode 28. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Wes. I'm here as always with Andrew to talk about Overwatch. So how was Overwatch for you?
Overwatch has been pretty good. I've been playing a lot of Reaper, been having a lot of fun with that. It's always fun racking up those queues. Been playing a little bit of PTR even. I got a chance to get in there a little bit more and have some fun in there, and we'll talk about that a little bit as well.
Right, I finally caved in and got a golden weapon. I've been sitting on the point since season 1, and I thought, just Ana, I've been playing Ana, and I just caved in and I got her golden weapon.
That's good. I like her golden weapon. I'm not sure who I would even consider getting. Like I said, I talked in the past, I'm not crazy about stuff like that as far as, sprays and stuff like that. But it'd be interesting to see who I might get a golden weapon on. But I like Ana's.
I'm thinking next season maybe Zenyatta, but maybe I'll just get the new hero because it seems like, on average we might get a new hero every season, probably, safe to say, right?
Something like that.
So maybe I'll just get the new hero's golden weapon.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. Depends on what it is. I mean, golden balls on Zenyatta is pretty cool, but I think there's plenty of really good ones out there too. So,
right, yeah. I mean, unfortunately, I haven't been able to play too much Overwatch this week, man. I honestly played probably like a couple games. It's been a crazy week. This is the show right before Blizzcon, right? So we've got tons of things to look forward to there, and making plans for that as well. So
yeah, I mean, a lot of things coming quick around the corner for Blizzard and for especially Overwatch, and so we'll be talking a lot about that. But yeah, I mean, a lot of things going on even in the PTR. We talked in the last episode about a lot of changes and things that we're seeing in the PTR that obviously are subject to change, and like we said in the past, they're going to be pretty big changes on the PTR. They're looking to get as much information as possible. They even removing quick play from PTR completely just to get all the information they can for the next season coming up.
Yeah, I think you get more fair games, and for data collection, obviously you can only have the one hero limit that would imitate the more actual competitive what you would actually see in actuality. So good move on them, I think.
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed it. Like I said, the only thing I will say is the queues were a little bit long, at least when I played in the PTR recently. Long queues, but yeah, I mean, I really like what they're doing so far. Like I said, a lot of pretty big changes going on in the PTR, and speaking of even the UI, there was pretty sizable change to the UI elements and how that's laid out, and it looks really good. I mean, if you haven't checked it out, definitely check out the PTR. It looks really good.
Yeah, the PTR will probably be around for a while though, so no rush there, right? Probably at least 3 weeks or so.
Right, yeah, I expect it'll be going on for a little while. Like we said, they're going to be changing the PTR pretty frequently just to kind of get as much feedback as they can before they actually release it to live. So it'll be around for a little bit.
All right, so let's go ahead and jump into the show, right? So let's talk about news. We do want to mention the Halloween Terror event is ending soon. So if you're listening to this, pretty soon after it got published, it will be ending very, very soon. So this is your last chance to get your unlocks, get the specific skins and the things you like.
Right, so November 1st, it will be ending, so it'll be your last chance to get any of those achievements, sprays, any of the holiday goodies that you're looking forward to getting. You want to do that quickly.
And I feel like I was the last to hear of this, but I just realized, or I just found out that there's like an Easter egg behind Diva's tombstone, the victory pose.
Right.
I don't know if you're aware of it, but I just wanted to... listeners, if you haven't seen the Easter egg behind because the victory pose, you see the front of the tombstone, the RIP tombstones.
Right,
yeah. There's a little Easter egg behind it, so you have to go in the gallery and actually turn around behind Diva's. But so if you haven't looked at it, it's a small little Easter egg thing. I thought it was funny, but you could check it out.
Yeah, I have definitely not seen it. I will have to check that out. I'm not, like I said, I'm not usually in the hero gallery. That kind of stuff usually isn't my thing. But yeah.
I don't want to spoil anything. Give listeners reason to get in the game. Check it out.
Right.
So it's not a big deal. I just thought it was really funny.
Yeah, I mean,
but anyways,
Blizzard's really known for a lot of that kind of stuff, doing the Easter egg stuff, and I love Easter eggs. Like I said, I'm not big on the costumes and the skins, but I will definitely have to check.
Yeah,
that
I feel like everyone probably already knows about it. But anyways, yeah. So if you want that Diva tombstone or any of the other seasonal promotional things that are going to be leaving very, very soon, so it's your last chance. I know. I was waiting to see if I got the candy one on Ana, right, where she gives candy away. I was just waiting because. I might get it in the loot box, but I end up, buying that as well because that's like the best thing. It's like, here, have some Snickers. You can shower candy on the dead people after sleeping. It's really cool.
I mean, there's a few really good emotes and sprays and stuff that are really cool. So definitely get those while you can.
Right, and yeah, so there's also last chance for specific achievements, right? Because there are some sprays you unlock just completing like the the brawl on like a hard difficulty or just completing it on all the individual heroes, the 4 heroes, right? There's some sprays to be unlocked there. So, I mean, we're assuming they'll be available next year, but if you're in it now, just get it now.
Yeah, you never know. The achievements and that kind of stuff may be different next time, so definitely get that.
There'll probably be some new ones, yeah. But if you miss some skins or some portraits or whatever, I'm sure they'll be making a return next year. But yeah, so also season 2 is going to be coming to an end relatively soon here. The 24th of November is the last day for season 2. That lands on a Thursday, and exactly a week after that, we're going to have the beginning of season 3.
Right, so it is coming up pretty quickly here. November 24th coming right around the corner, and the week difference between season 2 and season 3 much quicker. Like we said in the past, they were looking forward to making it less time in between, but 1 week is it's really good. I think it's a perfect amount of time. I think everybody wants to get right back into the next season, and I think originally the 3 weeks was a little long. So
yeah, I'm definitely enjoying the season structure. Give you just and other people just more of a reason to hop in the game, get like a kind of a fresh start. Hopefully not too fresh where you have to start at the bottom every time. Maybe, hopefully not. But yeah, the 1 week I do like it a little bit better. I believe last time was 3 weeks long. And I think there's gonna be like a counter in the game as well, so people know.
Right, and we're gonna be talking a lot about what to expect between season 2 and 3, and what's coming for season 3. So we'll definitely be talking a lot about that a little bit later.
Yeah, just a heads up. Obviously the rewards at the end of the season are dependent on the highest you achieved in that season. So if you want to, just play a bunch of games and get as high as you can, even if you fall down, the reward, which is the points, right, the competitive points, you use to purchase golden weapons. They will be rewarded dependent on your highest achieved for that season.
Right, so no matter how far you drop down, you're always going to be rewarded for your highest marks. So it's always good to allow people to push and try and get as high as they can without having to worry about falling down. So definitely do that while you can. Like I said, it's coming quickly around the corner. Get in your games while you can.
Yeah, and I think at the very end of the season is probably your best bet for that long, that push for the very end. Now that most people have spread out and everything.
Right, a lot of people be spreading out. A lot of people might not even be playing at this time. Near the end of the season, they might have hit their goal and they're kind of waiting for season 3 to come around. Maybe they moved to quick play. Maybe they're not around on vacation. Whatever.
Yeah, it's important to point out that there is some decay. If you haven't played, I believe it's a week. I have friends that have, a lot of accounts, and that's something that they have to be on top of. Sometimes they intentionally let it decay, but
right, it's strictly 7 days. So if you haven't played a single game within 7 days, you need to get in there and play at least one game for it to stop the decay.
Correct. All right, so let's talk about a little bit about BlizzCon, right? So this is the last show, prior to BlizzCon. Obviously, we're going to be covering BlizzCon next week in its entirety, and it'll probably be a jam-packed show, I'm sure. But it's just some things to expect. New heroes. Obviously, a lot of people are expecting Sombra. I'm expecting her to be on the PTR probably shortly after. We could expect new maps, new modes. What are you looking forward to?
Yeah, obviously, there's going to be a lot going on in BlizzCon, and we're expecting a lot of different things. Sombra's probably the main one, but we talked about it previously. They have a couple of different maps that they've been talking about for a long time, and even possibly new modes. I'm definitely looking forward to Sombra. Obviously, any more heroes in the game, I think it brings a lot more diversity to the game and brings, different metas. And I always love seeing, a shift in the meta and see kind of where things go. So I'm definitely looking forward to Sombra. And I think the next big thing that I'm really looking forward to see what they're doing with maybe a new map. I think, the last map, Eichenwald, that they brought out, I think they did a really, really good job with that map. And I think it's an amazing addition, and I can't wait to see what they do with the next.
Yes, and the current PTR balance, a lot of people, have some complaints or like, obviously it's a PTR place, you expect changes, but they probably are taking into account, Sombra that's most likely going to be hitting the PTR before it goes live. So it's just something to consider, right? So if you have to consider the balance with that new character.
Right, and not just that, they're expecting, they have the paradigm probably already well laid out on how Sombra is going to play out and how she might affect the meta. And like we talked in the past, because this is a longer-term PTR and the numbers and the changes that they're making are much more drastic, and I think that leans itself to how Sombra might affect the meta in the game overall. So they're trying to push things in certain direction to see how is this going to affect the rest of the game if we make these changes for Sombra and whatnot. So yeah, there's definitely big changes going on in the PTR. Just don't be too weirded out by, like I said, there's quite a big change there going on.
Yeah,
so.
we know that Blizzard likes to sometimes take things to the extreme or a little bit more than they actually think that it ought to be, just to see what how that reflects the other variables.
Right. I mean, there's just so many good things you could say about that. I mean, it leans itself to them being able to get the most information in the shortest amount of time that they possibly can, and then also it lays the groundwork for when things and changes come along the way, they know kind of how far they can push things before they break it without having to put it into live. So yeah.
And also, more details on E-League is what I'm looking forward to hearing, right? So we know a little bit about, we just heard little clips of a couple interviews with the CEO of Activision and Blizzard.
Yeah, Activision Blizzard Cottage. Doing an interview and talking about, basically a proper E-League coming right around the corner. We don't have a lot of details on what's going to happen with that and how that's going to lay out. I mean, obviously we have, plenty of other examples to look for, and we know Blizzard is, masterful when it comes to taking bits and pieces from other existing content and trying to make it their own. So I definitely expect we'll see a lot of different things going on with this E-League. So we're definitely looking forward to that for sure.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly one thing I would be expecting is a lot more details on the E-League, hopefully some sort of time frame. Hopefully it's next year. Obviously there'll be some things that are probably going to affect the game very soon, probably things like Sombra, maybe even a map like very shortly around the corner. They'll probably be talking about things that will be taking place further down the line as well, I'm assuming. Things to look forward to as well. So do you have any predictions or anything in particular you want to see?
Not in particular. The only thing I was going to say is specifically with the E-League, I mean, I think the biggest thing that I'm wondering about and hoping we will get information on at BlizzCon is the structure of the E-League overall. Now, you have plenty of E-Leagues out there that are very stringently structured and they're across the whole year time frame, and things are laid out and scheduled way ahead of time, which leans itself obviously to viewership and allowing people to know when things are happening and where things are happening. You think of typical sports where you have a whole schedule laid out before a single game is even played, and then you have other E-Leagues that are not laid out that way, which, they have their own benefits, but honestly, it really depends on which way they take Overwatch. Is it going to be much more stringent or not? So I'm hoping that will be answered pretty soon here.
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably guess they go with like more of a seasonal thing, so maybe like during the summer they have a league, and then at the very, very end, which is BlizzCon, they'll probably have the World Finals. That's probably something. I mean, something I'm looking forward to, obviously, is solo queue, or maybe like a solo duo queue. I mean, I don't want to get my hopes too high, but I mean, that would be something that would be
yeah,
amazing.
I think you might be waiting a little bit on that one. I mean, I definitely, like I said, I feel your pain with that. I'm definitely would be in preference of single or duo queue like that. But I think they've said time and again that they kind of like the dynamic queue and the way that's working, quote unquote.
I mean, I don't think they have to throw away dynamic queue. It's just I would like a space that's more competitive and individual players are all there on their own accord, right? So there is no carries. You don't have to worry about, oh, is that person, this rating because of this, and that. And it should just be if you think of games that have really good, like especially third-party leagues and things where people will go out on their own and make their own league, and a lot of times they are just invite-only and stuff, you can guarantee when you're at the higher tier that those games are going to be fair. You can guarantee, you can have certain expectations of your player base, your teammates. And it's just like a good scrim, honestly. It's like a pug, but it's also because of the level. See what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, it's less variables, pretty much, is what we're talking about. I mean, less variables going on, less kind of nuanced things that you're not really aware of how they work or how they're kind of coming per match to match. So I mean, currently the way it's working is you have plenty of people who are maybe not where they should be or being carried, like we said. So I mean, yeah, I definitely, like I said, I would prefer a single duo queue, but I don't think it's gonna be.
I mean, we've all come across the player who is not at the rating that they ought to be in for whatever reason, but usually it's because they got grouped and they got carried. And like I said, this isn't game breaking or anything. I hate to be a downer, but I mean, it's just the one thing I've been championing for a while. And I just think that it is an accurate representation of the skill. The people who are at the top of the solo queue, there is no question about it. I'm saying they solo queued and they are the best, and it's a good representation of actual ability. And there's their own skill sets, with single queue being able to mesh and maybe have some ability to change characters and have a diverse, player pool. There's some other, characteristics that play as well.
Right, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of little things that play into it, but yeah, I definitely agree. Like I said, we've both been talking about it for quite a long time, and I guess we'll just have to wait and see what they plan on doing. But I think more than not, I think we're gonna still be sticking with the duo queue for at least a little while. So we'll see how that works out.
Yeah, but we'll see. So let's go ahead and talk about the LumeriCo update, right? So some new news that came out.
Right. So just a quick, brief. We've been talking about Sombra. We're waiting for Sombra for, on pins and needles for quite a while now, but we did get a little bit more information. We talked about previously Sombra had hacked into LumeriCo and kind of got in there and stole some information from them and kind of have made it public as of recently. So a lot of
maybe we should explain what LumeriCo is.
Right. So LumeriCo is the
it's like a power plant company.
Yeah, it is an energy company owned. It's in Dorado, Mexico. It's owned by Mr. Portero. He's the CEO, and basically, it's one of the companies that Sombra has been targeting as of recently. And we just found out recently that they actually have some connection to even the Vishkar Corporation, which we've seen way back when with Symmetra's comic and her connection to them as well.
And she's not a good guy.
Yeah, so some seedy connections there already, coming out with this recent leak of documents. So Sombra's been targeting them as of recently. The documents have come out, and basically LumeriCo has been talking about for quite a while. They're going to be opening a nuclear plant as of November 1st. We've been talking about. But the Los Muertos, which is a gang in Dorado, Mexico, that has actually been supporting Sombra, which we knew had a connection to Sombra recently in the past here, are actually talking about a protest on that nuclear plant on November 1st. So definitely something is probably going down around November 1st we're looking forward to.
Yeah, we saw the Los Muertos in the 76 cinematic short. And it's just a good time just to let people know, if you haven't seen all the cinematic shorts, you could go to just playoverwatch.com. They're all over there. I'm sure, a lot of people listening to this probably actually haven't seen all of them. I mean, there's Bastion, 76. I mean, there's tons of cinematic shorts. And it was, it might have been pretty easy just to miss one or two here. So definitely right now would be a good chance to get caught up with that, get a little bit of story as well. I mean, people who are interested in that.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, they're great stories on their own. You can go check them out. And like I said, there is little tidbits here and there. That's where we kind of got a little insight into the Vishkar and to Symmetra's connection with them. And now, of course, we're seeing that connection to the CEO of LumeriCo and obviously to Sombra. So we're interested to see what's going to happen with that. I'm waiting for November 1st, and we'll see. Hopefully something big happens.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, so we're expecting maybe something happens November 1st in our timeline, right, which is right around the corner. So we'll see. I mean, pretty much you have, powerful CEO, has his company, and then you have the gangs kind of, boycotting that for some reason. But I mean, they're just trying to bring like a big, powerful energy source to Mexico.
Right, and well, we found out recently that they're actually been, helping out Vishkar and actually giving them some of that their resources as well. And also, we found out, that the CEO has been actually using the company funds for bribes and kickbacks and things like that as well. So, yeah, a lot of little things to talk about there. I mean, like I said, it's nothing groundbreaking, but I just thought it was interesting that we keep hearing about this November 1st, and I'm assuming something's going to be happening. So.
Yeah, which will be, right after we record this podcast, so perfect timing for sure. So was there anything else that you want to talk about? I think you pretty much covered all topics.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much the majority of it. I mean, obviously, if you guys have any interested in it at all, you can, find that on, line. You can find that on Blizzard's website at, Play Overwatch, and also there's plenty of different places on the web you can find that as well.
All right, so a few game directors and developers and designers have been posting on official forums, and that's always nice. We could talk about, get in their heads and see, what they're working on and things. So let's start off with Jeff Kaplan. He's the game director. He's the main honcho over there. He was talking a little bit about the report function and how they're working on that, and how, we'll probably see some new changes in the, the next patch 1.5 and some future changes as well.
Right, and it's one of those things, with the report function. It's such a vital, importance to the game because it has to be there. But it's one of those things that you have to worry about, being over abused and such. So it's one of those things we've seen quite a bit of changes on so far. Be interesting to see what kind of changes are going to be coming with patch 1.5. But definitely looking forward to that.
Yeah, so I believe in the next patch we're actually going to have some new options when you go to report someone. Right now there's only like 3 or 4 harassment, spam, and such. This post was in response to a post someone was concerned about getting reported and they actually get a silence because they're picking Symmetra's, sound like a Symmetra main maybe, and that person was getting reported just based on the picks of the characters, and obviously that's probably not something Blizzard's happy about. So that was specifically what was the concern. And yeah, so he's just pretty much saying this is something they're working on. Some changes will be coming soon, and then some will be coming out a little bit later.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, obviously, they've talked about that in the past with picks specifically. I mean, obviously, some people think, it's important to have that report feature, depending on certain picks in certain situation. But obviously, this is a game where it's a team-oriented thing, and we want everybody to feel, eligible to pick whoever they think is best in the situation and not get reported just for specifically picking someone who, quote unquote, might not be the best pick at the situation. So definitely looking forward to those changes.
Yeah, I'm interested to see exactly how they implement it. Obviously I don't think it's right just to, someone get reported just based off a hero pick. I mean
unless it's a Bastion, if it's Bastion, you feel free to report them all you want.
Yeah, but I got the BlizzCon Bastion skin. How am I ever going to use it? Why's it got to be a Bastion skin? That's all I'm trying to say. You're going to feed the trolls anymore.
Just because you spent your money, unwisely doesn't mean I have to be. Anyways, we're joking. But, of course, we don't want to see that happen. So, definitely stay tuned for those changes. Obviously,
I'm all for protecting people. Like, if someone wants to play Symmetra, that's fine. But when you're in an average 3,400, skill rating game, and you have a Symmetra putting the teleport in the shuttle on your King of the Hill map, I mean, how are they going to tell, or that's a proper report right there. See what I'm saying?
Right. So, yeah, there's definitely some things to be addressed, and hopefully they will address those coming in patch 1.5. We'll keep you updated on that.
All right, so let's get some more blue posts. These are going to be by Scott Mercer. He's the principal designer over there for Overwatch. And you want to talk about Season 3?
Right, so we've been talking a lot, like we said, about Season 2 coming to an end pretty quickly here, and what we can be expecting for Season 3. So just wanted to kind of cover, basically what Scott Mercer was talking about with, what to expect for Season 3. So first off, we'll start off with, their matchmaking goals. It's one of the things that he mentioned, the key things that they kind of think about a lot and kind of give you their mindset on how it is. So first and foremost, obviously fair matches of skills between the teams is top priority across the board. Second thing is definitely, having each new season kind of feel, like you said, like a fresh start. So a lot of people like having that fresh start, but as we already mentioned, we don't want it to be completely new start. We wanted to have some bearing on previous seasons. So it's one of the things they talked about, both those points kind of contradicting each other. Obviously a full reset would cause, unfair matches in the beginning. So it's kind of one of the things that they've been struggling with each season.
Right, and we've talked about it in the past, but obviously, my opinion is quality matches have to take priority over everything else. So over the feeling of a journey of this new season, this new fresh start, the quality matches should take priority. So that should take priority in waiting, so they shouldn't be prioritizing, short queue time just to get you in a game. You should wait however long it takes to get a good quality match. And yeah, I think they should, obviously, they do consider hidden MMR with the Season 1 and Season 2 so far.
With the reset, yeah.
Yeah,
definitely.
so it's not solely based on 10 placement matches, obviously. There's
Right.
some other things being done in the background, but...
Which, is good and bad in its own right. We've talked about that in the past. There's a lot of things that kind of go along with that. So not necessarily simple, straightforward. Like I said, I mean, we play quite a bit, and we've gone through 2 seasons, and it's still not exactly clear how everything is kind of mapped out, so...
Yeah, but it's obvious, someone could have got a better record than you in your placement matches, but you're higher than them. And obviously, it's not just solely dependent on 10 games win or loss.
Right, exactly. So, so just things to keep in mind. Like I said, I think one of those things, like we said, the fresh start, I mean, I like the feeling of that as well. But at the same time, like you said, we're both in agreement. Fair matches have to come first. And I think ultimately they kind of have to do away with the whole full resetting of the skill rating. So just something to keep in mind. Those are kind of the 2 things that they've been going back and forth at. And also, the next thing is skill tier distribution and kind of the way that worked in Season 2 they were talking about as well.
Right, so they came out and said, Season 2 had way more players in the gold and the platinum than they intended to, from the get-go, and they had fewer bronze and silver. And I was talking to you earlier, I mentioned, I've never seen a silver or a bronze player in any game before. I just wondered, how much of the population is actually down there.
Yeah, I mean it's much fewer, I think, than is legitimate, because I mean even I don't think I can't recall seeing a bronze or silver. I'm not saying it couldn't have happened, but I don't remember seeing it. But yeah, and they were just specifically talking about the fact that that was kind of a result of how the skill rating was initially calculated. So with the partial reset causing quite a bit of unexpected result in that category. So that's something that they're going to be definitely taking a hard look at for season 3 coming around the corner, and trying to make that as best as possible, because they obviously don't want that to happen again. We want, again, fair matches across the board. So, a lot of stuff that goes into, each season, things that they've been covering. So, obviously below average players, starting in a lot higher skill rating than they should have. Obviously not the way they wanted it to turn out, because then, you have the case of people immediately dropping quite a bit. Obviously does not feel good.
Yeah, so it sounds like they're going to be more conservative, right, with your placement, and they'll be more proactive with, okay, if you're winning a lot of games, then we'll bump you up, shortly after the placement, and kind of wiggle you around quicker at first, and then, that's what it sounds like.
Right, so the distribution is going to be a little bit different. Obviously, in the beginning, they are going to be a lot less generous with your placement. You're going to be a little bit lower than maybe you should be, just to kind of, make sure that you're not going to be dropping games really quickly and running into a pretty heavy wall. But as soon as you're done with your placements, your wins are going to be worth a lot more, and so you're going to bump up really quickly to kind of where you should be. So we'll have to kind of see how that's going to work out. A lot of little things that we can talk about with that, and how that could kind of potentially affect things.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I mean, I look at season 1 and all the improvements they've made, in season 2. So hopefully, every season going forward, just a little bit of improvement is all we need. And eventually season 45 will get solo queue.
Yeah, I mean maybe 45 is the lucky number, but hopefully we won't have to wait that long. But
maybe 60 years in the future when the actual Overwatch,
exactly.
happens.
Well, we'll have to take it up with like Tracer and the rest of them when it comes to time. But yeah, hopefully we won't wait that long. But yeah, so I mean that's pretty much it for their kind of their goals and such that they've been talking about. But definitely PTR as well, something that we wanted to talk is about.
Right. So we talked a little bit about it, right? So there's a shorter off season, right? Last time there was 3 weeks in between the seasons. This time there's only going to be the 1 week. It is going to be a Thursday, so it ends on a Thursday, November 24th. Just a little bit of review, and December 1st is when you're going to be ready to start that grind placement for season 3.
Right, and like you mentioned, there is going to be an in-game countdown for the next season in between season 2 and 3, which I think is a really cool addition. Not groundbreaking news, but just kind of a cool little thing that they're going to be adding to the UI. And like you said, there's a pretty big overhaul coming to the UI, and I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised if you haven't already seen it. I was really surprised with it. So as well as they're talking about the PTR and kind of what's coming for season 3 with determining your skill rating for season 3 coming around.
Right, and we talked a little bit about that, right? So they're going to be more conservative. Most likely you'll be placed a little bit lower. But if you are better than your teammates and your opponents in general, in average, you should move up relatively easy. I know a lot of times that's not the case. We feel like we're better and we still lose somehow. But, I mean, it should average out, right? So you make up a good percentage of your team. And Overwatch isn't too bad. It's not like a MOBA where really one person cannot be that impactful, So I feel, in Overwatch, it's an FPS. You could be more impactful. You could pick the characters that can carry a little bit more, your Zaryas, maybe your hit scans.
I mean,
stuff.
If you just watch any of the high-rated play, I mean, obviously the whole team is playing really well, but you can spot the players that are making the huge plays and making the biggest difference in the game. And of course, we all know there are certain characters like Reaper and like you mentioned, Zaryas, and that make a huge difference to the game and the outcome of it. So definitely not quite as bad as some other games.
I'm still convinced that support players are being shafted, though, because I'm a support main. I mean, I'm a flex. I could play anything, but, a lot of times I am support, and I feel like, a really, really good Ana, like, typically, maybe just 1 silver medal in healing, and that's a really good Ana, really good sleeps, really good shutdowns, really good nano boosts, really good healing. I mean, Lucio's going to out-heal you, but it's okay, a good amount of healing output. But, I mean, the point allocation that I'm going to get at the end of the game maybe not be as good as the fragger, right? Because it looks better when you have the 3 gold damage. And I'm just saying, like, obviously we know your personal performance does reflect in the amount of points you go up and down. And we've seen specifically supports in Season 1 kind of get shafted, Lucio and Mercy, and how, they weren't really being,
Well,
know.
and of course, obviously that was a bug. It wasn't something that was intended. But like you said, it is kind of the bane of an Ana who's more of a hybrid kind of character. She obviously focuses more on healing, but she's not the main healer. Usually, she's not the Lucio putting out the top healing and such. But she does provide a pretty big role to matches overall. I mean, all you have to do is watch any of the the actual rated high rank playing right now, and they're pretty much everybody is running Ana.
Yeah, I mean, Ana's definitely like probably the best character in the game in my opinion. Very impactful. It's just, the game obviously looks at your individual performance, and I'm usually like the first person to switch too. So like mid game, I'll switch with the tank if he's not able to do his role well, or I can switch with the damage if he's not killing anybody, and that's even worse because your average of your whole game. I mean, if the game's looking at okay, how much damage and healing and medals or whatever, like I said, it's not completely transparent. We don't know, but it just seems like what I've seen, with my experience, that the supports kind of, get a little bit short end.
Right, and I definitely think that's, maybe not exactly how it should be, but I think it's a little bit to be expected. I think, especially with her being a new character, the way that, the medals are allocated and things like that, she doesn't have a lot of medals to her character to be able to get, like certain other characters have as well. So I think that's something that might be fixed.
I mean, it's just not medals. It's not just Ana, like it plays Zenyatta. It's not just the medals. I'm just saying, like, obviously, everyone on your team doesn't get the same amount of skill point change. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
It has a lot to do with, if they got a win streak going on or whatever. But just something I've noticed, and maybe they'll give some love to the support players. It's just, if I do a queue with someone that's a fragger, for example, they're usually getting more points than me per win. But I mean, yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that's something that will come with time. So I think, like I said, they've already talked about it in the past and making changes to, like I said, with Season 1, they're having a problem with the support classes not getting as much as, the fraggers. But they're keeping their eye on it. I'm sure we will see some changes soon. So hopefully, like you said, they'll give some love.
All right, so let's talk about competitive, right? So we obviously have the Overwatch World Cup 2016, the very first one.
So some pretty big tournament stuff going on right now, and a lot of stuff to look forward to in the future. Of course, the main one, like you said, being the World Cup at Blizzcon.
Right, so the games already started. They started a few days ago. Really great games. Obviously, they're free to watch. You can watch them on Twitch. That's usually where most people watch it, but I'm sure on the Overwatch website themselves you can watch it, where the BlizzCon ticket's going to be.
Yeah, they're live on the Play Overwatch website, or you can just go to Blizzard's website, any of the websites, and it'll be on there, or you can go to twitch.tv/Blizzard, and we'll have that in the links for the show as well.
Right, so right now we have 16 teams, right, from all over the world. We've been covering this the last few weeks.
And it's important to know this is the group stages. Of course, this is, before BlizzCon, and we're going with, like I said, there's 4 groups of 4 teams in each, and it will be whittled down to 8 teams that will be going to BlizzCon.
Right, so BlizzCon is on the weekend, Friday and Saturday, so we're going to be cutting those teams in half between now and then, and we've been seeing some pretty good games. Obviously, if you haven't been listening, it's pretty much this is just like a for fun kind of tournament. There isn't big prize money or anything, but people voted on individual characters, or, individual players, and they kind of made teams so they represent their countries, right? So we have Sweden, we have US, Russia, Germany, and so on.
Right, so like I said, there's 4 groups of 4, and the top 2 on each of those groups will be going to BlizzCon. And of course, we're not going to cover every little thing. Like you said, you can go to twitch.tv/BlizzCon or go on to the Play Overwatch website, and you can catch any of those VODs. They're all on there. I've been actually watching quite a few of them, and some really good games being played. Obviously, the ones to watch out for, obviously, we have, USA. Of course, we're rooting for USA being in the U.S. here. Sweden is a really strong team going on right now. Russia, and even Germany.
Yes, and I would actually recommend just the BlizzCon website. You could catch all the VODs there, and it'll have the positions and all the teams and the outcomes there as well. Really good ladder, visual representation. But yeah, let's talk a little bit about the games. A lot of them are 2-0 blowouts, right? But there was some that went pretty close. Some interesting things, right? So a lot of people were thinking Germany was going to have a really, really strong team. They actually have pros. All 6 of their players are actually pros. they've actually lost both of their games, so they're 0-2.
Big surprise there. We talked about it on the last show. They were one of the expected teams that we would be seeing going to BlizzCon, but now 0-2. They got a pretty tough road ahead of them to get back to that road to BlizzCon. Like you said, their whole team stacked with pro players. Plenty of Internet Hulk, Ardier, Icefeld, really good players in their own right, but just not gelling together well as a team.
Right, and Russia had a pretty good showing. They've won both their games. So at this point, everyone's played two matches. So Russia's won both of theirs. Shadowburn's a favorite. A lot of people know him. He's got really good Genji play.
Yeah, if you want to watch some really good Genji play, definitely go back and watch Russia versus Germany. Really good game there for Shadowburn. And, of course, cannot forget about Unfixed. Did an amazing job on the McCree as well, so definitely watch those.
Yeah, definitely rooting for the U.S. Obviously, Siegel was the one that got the popular vote, and the way that worked is, he's the captain. He was able to bring a couple other people on the game as well. So, we have Adam, very good support character, Tailspin, people know him pretty well. So they have a pretty solid team. I think they have a pretty good shot at the win, but in my opinion, Sweden's probably the most stacked, right?
Yeah, we were looking over the team lineups earlier on today, and I had totally forgot, even just watching them, how many really good players they had on their team. IDDQD, Tivik, Chips. Their whole team is stacked.
And they have
with
Coco
really
as well.
Coco, amazing team so far, and it's paid dividends. 2-0, they're definitely looking really strong, and we will definitely, I'm sure, see them moving on to BlizzCon.
Yeah, and a couple other upsets. Thailand actually did take one against France. We should watch that today.
Right, that was it was a really weird series to watch, but some good play, back and forth. It went really back and forth with them, so it kind of was a really interesting game to watch. So if you want to watch a really close game, you can definitely go back and watch that.
Yeah,
one.
in Group C, South Korea looks to be the favorite. They won both their games, but they also have Finland, which is showing pretty good dominance as well.
Yeah, Finland did a really great job. South Korea. So I definitely looking. Those two will probably be going on from Group C. I'm looking. Obviously, China's probably going to move on from Group D. And like we said, I'm sure USA will be moving on, and Sweden as well. So.
Right, and next week we'll know the final outcome. Actually, the world champions. Hoping for the USA. I feel bad for Canada and some other places. You have some picks like Brazil. Honestly, they're just really happy to be there. They probably they're saying like most of them had never even been on an airplane before. They're flying to the States. They're playing in this huge stage. Big production. Obviously, Blizzard went all out with this. So they're just having a blast, just being able to participate, and it's fun.
Yeah, like I said, all in all, this is just for fun, bragging rights. But, most of these people haven't played together or don't know each other very well. They didn't have a lot of time to practice. And, like I said, not all of them are pro players. So, it's just for fun. Like you said, you mentioned Canada. Canada, obviously, Surefour being on there, being one of the best players, I would probably say, in the whole of Overwatch. But, it feels pretty bad for them, 0-2 so far. So. Hopefully Surefour can at least put on a good show for us. But, we'll see what happens with that.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to what's going to go down in the Anaheim Convention Center. Great stage. I'm looking forward to, pretty good production quality. The casters are doing a pretty good job.
Yeah, one of the just little things that I noticed with the production is they're actually having not just the player names, but with the player names, the team, right above the player. So whenever they're viewing a point of view of a specific player, you can tell exactly what team they're from. And so they did a really good job of adding little things like that kind of help out with the viewability of the game.
Yeah, and we talked a little bit about some new features, the pause feature, and I've noticed some camera shifting features as well. Going from character to character, kind of like just zoom.
Yeah, you watch the starting of every match, and they're moving the camera around, panning around. I watched some really funny parts with that. Some of the camera people getting a little fun with the camera moving it around, and specific signs that they're kind of showing off, stuff like that. So it's cool to just see little things like that where things are different. And they're kind of able to kind of do their own thing with them. So definitely some interesting things going on with the camera. Like we said, the camera's being a little bit more fluid and smooth from transition from player to player, of course. Just really, really good all over.
Yep, and this time next week we'll have the full outcome, and
we'll have a lot to talk about there, definitely. Yeah, so go USA. Hopefully, there'll be some really good games going on.
All right, so let's talk about MLG. Blizzard bought them out not too long ago, but they do have a big event going on. It's called Endgame. It's a $100,000 prize pool, and it's going to be taking place in Las Vegas at the Mandalay Bay.
Right, so that is going to be going on December 16th through the 18th. So it is coming up relatively quickly. It's a 3-day event, esport and digital festival that will be going on. Like I said, it is a $100,000 prize pool, Overwatch Invitational. It's going to be 8 teams. We don't have a lot of information on how that's going to exactly stack up and the way the scheduling is going to work out with that, but we'll definitely be following that and giving you guys updates on what's going to happen with that.
Yep, and it's not just Overwatch. I know they have like a North America big Call of Duty event going on down there as well. There's some other things going on, some just general gaming kind of stuff going on. But yeah, they will have the Invitational. I'm assuming the big teams will most likely try to get obviously $100,000. They're going to want part of that money, right?
Definitely. So yeah, we'll see. We'll keep you in touch with that.
Yeah, and if you're in the area, if you want to go down there, a general admission's $50 for the 3 days. They have like a VIP admission, for VIP seating and stuff, $150. If you want to check it out, 3-day event, and I'm actually interested to see how it pans out. A lot of this has to do with just how the community is growing and how people perceive the community, and so I think they're trying to do some things along those lines. Like outreaching. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like we said, we've talked in the past. There's plenty of stuff going on in the world of Overwatch constantly, and this is just another thing that is definitely trying to put itself out there and kind of be a part of what Overwatch is becoming relatively quickly. So yeah, we'll be interested to see how that kind of works out.
Yeah, we'll definitely keep you up to date on there. So let's talk about Cloud9. They did have an official roster change.
Right, so it is official now. We talked about in previous episodes, Cloud9, 3 of their members are no longer with them, and they were actually trying out 3 new members relatively quickly. They were in, I think the last major tournament was the Alienware Monthly Melee that they were a part of. So obviously the former, the original members still there right now are Shurfor, Adam, and Kai. Really great players across the board, and they were looking to pick up 3 new people. They tried out Rib, Mendo, and Wolf, and Rib and Mendo are actually sticking around, but they actually kind of going with someone different for their second support, and they're going with Rolf.
Yeah, and it looks like a very solid lineup. I think I think the larger organizations like the Cloud9s, the Tempo Storms, you just go on right, Misfits, all these teams, I think they're looking forward to the future and looking, all right, we've heard a little bit about this E-League. Let's try to get a roster and let's try to get the best people we can now, and the sooner the better, and something that can actually be more long-term, right? Because we've already seen so many hero swapping, or not just hero swapping, actual player swapping, right?
Right, roster changes and
roster
people
changes.
going from one place to the other. I definitely think it's leaning itself towards that. I mean, obviously, like I said, Shurfor, Adam, and Kai being those 3 remaining members, obviously great players in their own right. But Rib, Menakusai, of course, we've talked about them plenty. Mendo being one of the top fraggers. We talk about him quite a bit. So, yeah, I mean, we've seen, like we said, they kind of jump into things really quickly. They were just in there for a trial period. We weren't sure how things are going to work out. They kind of had a little bit of a rocky start, obviously just jumping in and not having any practice time, seat time together at the Alienware Monthly Melee, but I think relatively quickly we've seen them kind of get together, at least some sort of momentum pretty quickly. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what's going to happen with Cloud9. They're always kind of at least near the top of, the top echelon of teams out there, and I definitely look forward to them being in the top pretty constantly.
Yeah, I expect especially the larger organizations to actually kind of probably have a little bit more insider information to the future. But I think now is the time to invest for the future, try to get that roster, because obviously what happens most of the time is you have a roster lock, right? So when you compete in these huge tournaments that span, maybe, multiple seasons or a whole year, you want to have a consistent group of people who mesh well together, and not have people just like hopping out of contracts and stuff. But you see a lot, especially in the early few months.
Well, and not just that. Like we said, obviously jumping in together with 3 new people and not having any seat time to practice, obviously they're not going to do crazy well together when they've never played together. And it's important that they get those teams kind of locked in early so that they do have time to practice, and they're not one of those situations where they just barely formed, they're a whole new team, they've not practiced. Obviously if they're going to make changes, they want to do it now. So I think it's a really good assessment for them to pick up these 3 new players, and I definitely look forward to seeing how they're going to compete.
Yeah, and before we end the episode, let's talk a little bit of strategy, right? So I was thinking, let's talk a little bit about the advantage of ultimate status. Ultimates honestly, in this game have such a huge impact. In the PTR, they're testing on maybe dialing down, the rate at which we're able to get our ultimates, which I've been kind of saying is probably a good idea for a while now.
Right, so they're going to try and dial it back a little bit, but even still, this game revolves pretty heavily around ultimates, and I don't see that changing too much in the future. Obviously, ultimates are still going to matter, so it's important to note, not just when you have your ultimate, but your teammates have their ultimates, and try and keep on track of when your enemies have their ultimates or when they're using their ultimates. It's very important. So
yeah, for those who don't know, you can actually see at any given time if your teammates have an ultimate. There's a blue lit up check mark when you tab default on the PC. Obviously, you probably should be communicating with them always, especially if there's a good combo, like especially if you have like a Zarya or something. You're not going to be ulting ever by yourself. But it's not just about knowing your ultimates or your teammates' ultimates, but even more importantly is keeping track of your enemy's ultimates, right? So especially, for example, if you just lost a team fight, maybe the enemy used 2 or 3 ultimates on you, knowing that they just use both their support ultimates, and let's say maybe we have a Reinhardt and an Ana ult, we need to use our ults before they're able to get their support ults again.
Right, and all this is very situational. It depends on your situation. I mean, of course, having that knowledge and keeping track of that thing is always important regardless of the situation. But, every situation kind of fits itself to, when you're going to be using ultimates and how you're going to be using ultimates. But it's also important to note that obviously we talk about several heroes that, take a lot longer to charge their ults, and some heroes are a lot quicker at it. I think of like Tracers charge their ultimates really quickly. Certain healers can charge their ultimates pretty. May. I think you've been kind of talking a lot about May lately. So yeah, I mean, with her recent changes, and if you watch any of the tournaments of the Overwatch Cup, you'll see a lot of May.
I mean, I know her ultimate is Blizzard, which is the name of the company. But I mean,
every
30 seconds,
right?
Every 30 seconds, Blizzard a little too often.
And it's not a little ultimate either. It's like we said, they just recently changed, the size of her ultimates, and it is a pretty groundbreaking ultimate. It doesn't seem like a lot when it's just May, but you have other players, coming and helping out. You can take a whole team out pretty easily with a May ult. But anyways, getting back to what I was saying is, it's important to note, like I said, certain heroes charge their ultimates a lot quicker, so you want to keep that in mind as well. And it's also really important to note that these are the kind of things that make a really good player, make the difference between an okay player and a pro player, is not only being able to keep track of these things, but especially in situations when you're down, and not just turning to, I'm just going to try and spam, Tracer into this point. And no, you need to make sure you take a breath, breathe, think about what you're doing before you do it, even in those clutch situations, because that's when it really matters.
Yep, and you always want to communicate that as well. When you do die, you do have a spectator cam. You actually do see the ultimate status of the enemy player. That's just something to keep in mind. But just communicate, if you just got solo ulted by their Ryan because you're just destroying their backline, I mean, that's very important information for your team, because now you're actually able to, approach safely, as a group. Just knowing, and, a lot of times the support ults are very, very impactful. A lot of times they cancel multiple ults. So if you get a Zarya and a Hanzo, for example, one Zenyatta could just cancel that out. So a lot of times the support ults do trade up. They get good value. So especially those, and especially in regards to engaging and disengaging, but just seeing those windows of opportunity, saying and just understanding, okay, they don't have this ult, they don't have a way to counter this, but we shouldn't just be poking back here at this, choke point for another minute, because Ana's going to get her ultimate easily. And
that, I think, really hinges on kind of the difference, like we said, with, low-rated players and players that are playing in, Platinum, Diamond, Master, and Grandmaster. Is, I play tons of games where people are just, pushing when they ought not to be pushing, and not pushing when they ought to be pushing. I can't tell you how many times I've had games end where it's like we completely crush them on defense, and we end in such a great position that I think we've got this in the bag, and then just because we're not pushing together, we're not pushing at the right time, we don't make it to where we ought to. And it should be something that every player keeps in mind, is when and when not to be pushing. And again, it all revolves around, the more you know and the more information you can keep track of and keep an eye on, obviously visibility, especially in this game, is really key, and being able to have that information at your fingertips and know that information and communicate it is a really important thing, because then you can get into a situation where you're baiting out certain ults, you know, hey, if I do this, if I pop this ult, you know, I can trade up for, you know, maybe a really big support ult, maybe scare them into using something that they shouldn't, and now you're free to use, you know, a bunch of other situations to your advantage.
Yeah, and the last thing I would add is a lot of times if you go into a team fight and the enemy team uses a lot of ultimates, it just takes some discipline to know, okay, they just used 3 ultimates. I'm not going to try to use mine and magically turn this all around. You know, I know we're going to be majorly, you know, ahead in ults next engagement. And, you know, maybe you don't have the extra time. Maybe it's an overtime or 99% and you don't have a choice. But knowing that, okay, we baited this many ults, or it's a lot of times it's like, it's totally fine we lost that team fight because they totally, you know, blew these ultimates, and now we'll easily get the next time. So just recognizing that as well.
Right. It's checkers. It's not chess. You know, every time you see someone do something good, it doesn't mean you have to counter. You have to be better than them. Be smarter. Don't just use things, you know, when you shouldn't and waste it for your team. You know, communicate with your team. Do what you think is best and kind of plan things out ahead of time.
Like, how many times have you seen Zarya use her black hole when her teammate just got wiped?
Yeah, or the big one is you'll see, you know, one Zarya on the enemy team will use her ultimate, and then the other Zarya ults. And it's like, okay, I mean, I guess that kind of cancels it, but it's not the best situation, you know? I mean, it's much better to, you know, avoid the ultimate altogether, not waste your ultimate, and, you know, keep as many of your teammates alive, than use yours in a better situation. So, yeah, just things to keep in mind, definitely, that will hopefully help you bring up your play a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, some things are more obvious than others, but yeah, I think, you know, ultimates are extremely impactful. Just recognizing how they work, not feeding your enemy team ultimates, you know, especially things like Ana. She's able to generate so much. You know, a lot of times it's better not to do any damage at all if you're not going to get that kill. In a lot of circumstances, that is the case.
Yeah, there's very, very many cases where you should be considering where you're putting your damage and how you're putting your damage out. So, yeah.
Right, so I think that pretty much sums up, you know, our quick little strategy. If you did have an idea on something we could talk about in the future episodes, we would love to hear from you. And in just a few minutes, you'll be able to find out how you can contact us.
Right, so obviously any kind of feedback that you guys have, any suggestions, things that you might want to hear us talk about, things you have questions about, definitely you can email us. And that's going to do it for this show. And thank you guys very much for listening, and we will see you guys on the next show.
Yep, and this show is brought to you by Two Moon Studios. Again, thank you so much to all those who have reached out to us, and we love hearing from you guys. And yeah, if you ask us questions, you know, we'd love to answer them on the air. Yeah, something I think, you know, we would look forward to doing in the future. You know, have a little segment where we can answer questions. But anyways, if you want to contact us, our email is aheroeswelcomepodcast@gmail.com, and we are also on Twitter at Two Moon Studios, and those will also be in the link or description depending on how you're listening to this. Thank you again so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next week. Till next time.